White Nights by Fyodor Dostoevsky is one of his first published works. The story is short, only around 40 pages long, and is internally divided into 4 nights and 1 morning, as chapters of sorts. The story itself talks about a nameless young man living in St. Petersburg. Having lived his life so far by only drawing emotions from the people he sees every day, though never talks to, he becomes listless and without direction when those familiar faces one day disappear. He would be happy when they were happy, downcast when they were sad. Now, however, these faces were gone. New faces filled the city and made him feel alone, as the city itself was changing. The main focus of the story is on the relationship between the main character and a young girl called Nastenka, who he saves from the harassment of a man on the first night. After saving her, he cries and whines that he's never spoken to a woman before and that he's timid and shy and frightened of her. She reassures him that women like timid men and speaks to him for a short while. Being what seems like the first time our narrator has spoken to a human being, he spills his feelings and expresses his solitude and apparent lucklessness, asking her to meet him once more at the same spot the next night. She tells him that she can't stop him and needs to pass by that way regardless, and is alright with speaking with him once more, given a condition. This condition is that he doesn't gain romantic feelings for her. Nastenka herself is also lonely. This will become evident in later nights. On the second night, the narrator speaks about himself, but in no absolutes. He tells Nastenka that he has been utterly alone his entire life, and thus has no history to speak of. He says that he is a dreamer, and pictures himself doing a great many things within his dreams, none of which, however, manifest in reality. We learn not much more of the man aside from this. We know that he has a small apartment and an old, unsociable maid named Matryona for company. But past this, the man remains a mystery throughout the piece of work. We learn much more, however, from Nastenka. We learn that Nastenka has been living with her grandmother, tied to her, literally, by wire, and in the past year she had fallen for a man who had been renting in her building. The man had gone to Moscow to make a living and promised to return a year later and marry her. She notes at the end, however, that he has not sent any letters as yet, despite a year having passed. As the third night arrives, the narrator realizes that despite his assurances to Nastenka that their friendship was not but platonic, he's grown feelings for her. Despite his feelings, however, he pretends they don't exist, and helps her with writing a letter to her lover and posting it, as they await a response. Nastenka grows restless, and takes comfort in the friendship between her and the narrator, telling him that she loves him because he hasn't fallen for her. This dissonance causes the narrator to feel alienated once more, now even from Nastenka. The fourth and final night comes, and Nastenka despairs that her lover has yet been invisible. The narrator comforts her, for which she is extremely grateful, and this leads into the narrator confessing his true feelings. Nastenka is disoriented, and the narrator, believing their friendship is no longer possible, tries to run away, insisting on never seeing her again. She stops him, tells him that she still wants his friendship in her life, and perhaps in the future she could love him back. The narrator is hopeful at this prospect. As they walk away, however, the young man calls out to them. Turning, we, the reader, as well as Nastenka, realize that it's her lover. She runs into his arms, briefly returning to kiss the narrator before disappearing into the night. The final portion, the morning, is an epilogue of sorts. The narrator receives a letter from Nastenka, thanking him deeply for his friendship and company, apologizing for hurting him, and hoping that he would attend her marriage, which is set within the week. The narrator weeps, but is interrupted by Matryona informing him that she has cleaned up the cobwebs. The narrator notes that Matryona has never quite seemed as old and wrinkled as she did now, and wonders if he would grow old and continue to be alone. The final quote of the story is on screen, and it speaks about how the narrator wishes Nastenka all the best, despite the pain he has suffered. And he asks rhetorically if only a moment of bliss is enough to suffice for the whole of a man's life.